Our brains are made mostly of fat, so why not nourish them with the highest quality omega-3s available? Omega-3 Rejuvenate from Big Bold Health. Omega-3 Rejuvenate is a premium blend of pure oils from wild-caught Alaskan cod and sockeye salmon, sourced from the pristine waters of Alaska. This is not the story of other brands. The fact is, most of the world's fish oil products are produced from several types of species packed into nets in commercial fishing zones, loaded into the holds of vessels that stay out for days or even weeks, and put in processing plants that treat them with high heat, chemicals, and synthetic nutrients. Big Bold Health does it differently. All of it straight from the sea into the hands of skilled fishermen, instantly flash frozen and taken to their specially designed shoreside plant using a low-heat technique to extract the pure amber omega oil that contains all natural and abundant full-spectrum omega-3s, including EPA, DHA, as well as DPA, plus all natural vitamins A and D, and naturally occurring pro-resolving mediators to support cardiovascular, cognitive, and immune health. Their unique low-temperature extraction preserves the natural goodness of the fish so you get maximum benefits in every soft gel. No fillers, no shortcuts, just pure, potent wellness. Visit bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman and experience the difference. That's bigboldhealth.com/Hoffman for Omega-3 Rejuvenate. Use coupon code Hoffman20 for 20% off site-wide. Welcome back to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. We're talking about oxalate overload and its impact on a wide variety of medical conditions, not just kidney stones. Our guest, Sally Norton, her website is sallyknorton.com, and she's written a great book on the subject that I recommend very highly. It's entitled Toxic Superfoods, How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better. Now, Sally, I recall that from medical school, my medical training, that when people had kidney stones, you could do a 24-hour urine. It's kind of a burdensome thing for patients because they have to carry a urine bag around all day. Best test is best done at home because, people are going to say, what's in that bag? I was like, yeah, I'm just collecting my urine, when you're at work. And you can send in all that, urine, and it's a little, big volume urine, and they'll do an analysis, how much calcium, how much magnesium, how much oxalate is there. And we sometimes call that a stone risk profile because if you have beyond a certain threshold of those things, actually you want more magnesium, you want less oxalate. Sometimes they measure uric acid, a different type of stone, calcium, and so on. So
and
citrate, which is actually a counter factor for stones, right? You want more citrate. So
right. If you're low in citrate, you're in trouble. You could end up with kidney stones. So to me, that's the most important thing to ask your doctor for if you're doing a urine analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that they check the box for citrate.
Mm-hmm. But is that a definitive test for this? Because I think you suggest that maybe it doesn't really capture all people who have oxalate problems.
It absolutely does not. I have a short chapter on the testing problem in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's really quite interesting because some of the researchers like, even just to gauge average amounts of oxalate, you have to do 9 24-hour urine tests.
Oh.
Nobody's going to do 9.
Yeah. Doing one is
even
enough.
if insurance would pay for it. Not many patients would do that, let alone doctors. So that isn't working so well. And interestingly, the Valderpain Foundation their work was based on testing individual voids of urine. So during the day, you're going to pee 6 or 8 times if you have a healthy bladder. Now, one of the signs and symptoms that you've got an oxalate problem is that you pee a lot more than that. You pee in an urgent way. You have to do nighttime urination and get up a couple times at night. Those are all bad signs for your poor bladder that may be overburdened with oxalate.
Mm-hmm.
So what they found, though, with this individual void testing of all 8 or 10 or 15, if you're really bad with oxalates, you probably got more than 6 or 8 voids. But what they saw was if it had been done as a 24-hour urine test, it would have been in the high end of normal or just barely out of the range. Nothing to really get excited about. But what they did see was in a sort of circadian way that was unique to each individual, based on 3 days of testing, 3 non-consecutive days of testing, demonstrated spiky patterns where the body was managing its oxalate problem by releasing a big spike at one time and then taking a little break and having 2 to 3 spikes a day, typically. Some of them, didn't see any distribution data on this, but he tested about 4,000 women who volunteered for his pain study. And that's one of his unique findings, is that the body's got some management thing happening in the background. And there's not enough delving into the data to know how much of that is just the circadianness of a diet or the circadianness of the body's management of the toxic situation.
So it can vary, and it's elusive. I think there's some innovative labs who are offering different types of testing. I recall that one lab, frankly, that I can't use in New York because New York's kind of restrictive about which labs we can use, but that lab was offering other types of testing for oxalates, perhaps in the bloodstream, or, I'm not even sure how they track it. Are those tests ready for prime time?
I think you're referring to the organic acids testing,
yes.
which has its drawbacks, and there may be questions about accuracy, but some urine tests of some kind, if you see high oxalate in any test, then you need to take that seriously. The problem is it doesn't rule out whether or not you have an oxalate overload problem. I had one of those tests back in 2009, and the test showed I was perfectly fine and had no oxalate problem in any way, shape, or form, whether coming from the liver or the diet or whatever, because it's very easy with oxalate to get these false negative results. But if you get a positive on any of these tests, you want to wake up to the oxalate.
Well, it sounds like it's one of those situations where, they used to try to find out if a person was a witch, they would throw them in the water, and if they floated, they were a witch, and then they were burned at the stake. And then if they sank, they were immortal. They were just normal, but they died anyway. So it's kind of it's kind of a therapeutic dilemma, isn't it? There's no reliable test. There are a panoply of symptoms, and they're rather, frankly, these symptoms can be rather vague. Back stiffness, pain, cloudy urine, sleep problems. I mean, these are ubiquitous problems. So how does a person find out if potentially this is a problem for them?
Well, with a toxic illness in toxicology, the only real tool we have is comparing risk factors and exposure level and symptom patterns. And together, you can triangulate on this, and you can see clearly high exposure is a risk for all human beings with toxins, whether it be lead, cadmium, mercury, or oxalate. And it's particularly harsh on a person who's showing signs of some kind of intestinal weakness or history of NSAID use.
Or are you suggesting that people do a challenge of eat an entire rhubarb pie? I understand rhubarb is one of the highest things in oxalate, and see how they feel, or should they do a trial? Alternatively, a trial of elimination, identify all sources of oxalate and see if some of the symptoms remit when they're off those things.
Yeah, I think that the elimination diet is the safer approach to do, but people are doing experiments on themselves anyway, using these smoothies and these dark chocolate bombs, and people are throwing together foods that are very high in oxalate, not knowing that they're doing this to themselves, with things like almond butter, cacao, and sweet potato, and then somehow making that turn into a brownie or something. And they're unfortunately doing this to children, which is another whole topic of fearful behavior. So, but this risk factors of the hyperabsorption or kidney stress, but the response to the diet really is, I think, the best diagnostic option, because your only other options are bone biopsy and not good. The diet is very telling. If you know how to interpret it, know what it means when you start feeling better for a few days, and then maybe you don't, because at some point, if you give the body enough of a break, for a lot of us, there's a process where what used to be a mode of sequestration, where the body is literally holding on to oxalate in order to protect the vascular system, to protect the heart from varying calcium and electrolyte levels, to protect the kidneys. The tissues hold on to oxalate. They end up getting buried in your bones and bone marrow and your tendons and your thyroid glands. And now what you stop, you give the body a chance to go dig out the mess, which re-poisons you, because a lot of times that means it's coming back into the bloodstream.
So you're saying that paradoxically you might feel worse at first? Is that what you're suggesting? At some point
you will feel worse if you're really loaded. And for some people who are doing it through a carnivore diet without any mineral supplementation, and in a kind of keto way. I think that disempowers the engines of cleanup to be short on minerals and short on carbohydrates and things like that. So they tend to, their bodies procrastinate on this cleaning process, this deaccumulation process. And sometimes, I've had people interview me and come to me 3 years out, 5 years out, 6 years out, and all of a sudden they're suddenly sick with something that they can clearly identify as oxalate. And it took them years. But some of us are already what I call spilling oxalate and having oxalate signs. We didn't know that's what they were right from the beginning. But I would say mostly people feel better for the first 10 days, sometimes several months, and then some stuff starts getting weird.
So, in what way?
Well, it's different for everyone. That's one of many reasons why this is so hard to see in science, because we want it to be one way. There's this set of symptoms that for this disease. That's absolutely not how it works. And the literature is very clear on that, because there is a genetic form of this disease. And
yes, genetic hyperoxaluria. Yeah, there's which is a glitch in your genes, but that's relatively uncommon. And it accounts for only a small fraction of the people that experience oxalate problems, according to your paradigm, right?
It's very rare disease, and it comes from the output of like at least 250 different potential gene mutations that's affecting liver function, and the liver becomes this oxalate factory. And if you see the symptoms in early infancy, those children don't usually live to see age 2.
Wow. So that really is an illustration of how profound a real full-on onslaught of oxalate can be, with a multi-organ effect and obviously a brain effect too.
Oh, everything. It's neurotoxic. It's connective tissue toxic. So you see rheumatic problems and osteopenia, osteoporosis, easy breaks, tendinitis, loose joints, tight tissues, tendency to injury, and then all that urinary tract thing. And then eventually you get immune system problems. So you get all this kind of itis and what we call autoimmune. But what's happening is you're slowly polluting your body with particulate matter. That's a low-lying stimulus, irritating the immune system.
It's like metastatic oxalate, like it could permeate your body.
Yeah, it's going to hook onto tissues where you have injury, infection, inflammation. So it's going to be different in each person where the bioaccumulation is occurring and to what degree. Some people, it's isolated to their bladder or to some other tissue, and others, it's everywhere.
Okay. So as a practical matter, you don't suggest people go completely vegetable and fruit free, although many fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts are sources of oxalate. So how can you safely incorporate fiber and some beneficial plant polyphenols, which we know are good for us, in a oxalate elimination diet? What are some of the safe foods to include?
Well, a huge amount of the produce department is fairly low in oxalate, surprisingly. All the lettuces are low. Watercress is low. Arugula is low. And arugula is part of the
because I eat tons of that.
Cabbage family. And that whole cabbage family is relatively low. So turnip tops and mosh and radicchio and cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli and turnips and rutabaga and radishes. And it's a huge part of the produce department. They're all pretty low in oxalate. The problem vegetables are beet greens, chard, and spinach. And then there's the baking potatoes, which get turned into all the potato junk food that people like. Sweet potatoes, which is now being turned into junk food as well. And then you got the bran. The bran is protective in the grain. So the whole grains and the bran, the seeds, the nuts, the pseudo gluten-free grains. Like
so in effect, whole grains may be worse of a problem than even refined grains, which we know are not great for us, but it's more the things that are removed in the refining process that are more oxalate laden.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. It's part of the protective outer coat of seeds. I have a diagram of that in my book of the ring of oxalate crystals in a raspberry seed. When you take a cross-section of it, you can see how this calcium storage mechanism is also like a shell helmet around the seed, helping to protect it from premature germination, from digestion, from destruction and being crushed. The oxalate shell is protecting the seed. So when you take off the outer layers, you remove some of the oxalate. That would make sense. Why would the Asians always only take all that time to refine white rice when you could just cook it whole? Yeah. Because it's safer and more nutritious to eat the refined grain than it is the whole grain.
Interesting. And of course, certain berries are problematic, right?
The blackberry is the worst, and raspberries come up second. Kiwi, pomegranate, starfruit is so high in oxalate. It's famous. There's many studies, reports, and investigations done primarily in Brazil and South Asia, where they eat starfruit as a sort of spinach-like superfood, and people get into trouble.
And here's some real bad news: is that dark chocolate, major source of oxalates, right?
Yes, very bioavailable, but handy to researchers who want to test you and your oxalate absorption and how quick it gets in your kidneys. They can easily convince you to eat a chocolate bar or some hot cocoa to participate in the study. Okay,
right. Yeah, so it as a challenge to prompt higher levels of oxalate. Okay. Well, that's right. That's tragic news for many of us. Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. Here goes. Listen up.
Are you concerned about your blood pressure? Join the millions worldwide who have chosen Kyolic as a natural alternative to support their heart health. Why Kyolic? It works. Over 900 published scientific articles and research studies have shown that Kyolic aged garlic extract has a positive effect on cardiovascular risk factors such as high blood pressure, cholesterol, circulation, blood sugar balance, and more. Kyolic aged garlic extract, organically grown garlic aged for up to 20 months for maximum purity and potency. Gentle on the stomach, easy to swallow capsules with no offensive garlic odor or taste. Visit Kyolic.com. That's KYOLIC.com. Learn about Kyolic Formula 109 for blood pressure, as well as Kyolic's other cardiovascular formulas. Kyolic is sold at Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Whole Foods, and natural health stores everywhere. Also online. Get Kyolic Blood Pressure Health Formula 109. It works.
Thanks for listening, and thanks very much for supporting our sponsors. They are what make intelligent medicine a continuing resource for you. And now, back to today's guest, Sally Norton. Some of the things that are dietary staples that are kind of healthy. Avocados are intermediate, or what's the story there?
It seems to depend on their ripeness.
Oh,
a lot of things get a little less oxalatey as the more ripe they get. So based on limited testing, the riper the avocado, the less oxalate. So you can go from like 40 milligrams per avocado when it's underripe to 5 when it's fully ripe and turning brown.
And of course, there are lots of resources available on your website, and more complete resources available in your book. Your book is Toxic Superfoods: How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better. There's resources on your website, which is SallyKNorton.com. And Sally, what would you say to people who say, okay, I heard this, I'm just going to Google it, oxalate-rich foods. You're saying there's some problems with some of the popular websites that list oxalate content of foods, even some from some of the major, Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and Harvard, what have you.
Even the Harvard list is full of errors. Yes. There's not a good list online that's easily found. It's a world of confusion. And I've been working on a database for years. We have pretty much perfected that. And I'll have a data book companion to Toxic Superfoods, so people can have a comprehensive list that's been vetted, that's been set up to be easy to read and understand. It has all the references, so it's completely transparent about where the data is coming from. And most of those lists offer absolutely no information about the testing, where it was done, who did it, or even denominators. And they certainly don't tell you whether it was cooked or peeled or skinned or seeded. It's such rough data. It's really not good, but we're working on it.
And what about companion nutrients to facilitate oxalate detoxification? I think you're a fan of B6. You seem to be a fan of bone broth. I'm not sure if that helps with oxalate or just you think it's a healthy repair substance. What are some of those?
The biggest one is calcium.
Good.
Calcium is the binder that protects us from oxalate. Calcium acts like Oxalobacter fermentes in a way in the gut, in that it can help the gut excrete oxalate successfully, and it doesn't just come right back around because it is a passively absorbed molecule. So the gut can try to excrete it, and it can become like emptying a leaky boat.
So calcium's a binder,
Calcium
kind of a binder for
excretes the
oxalate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, calcium absorption isn't high. So you're taking calcium supplements. A lot of it is staying in the digestive tract. It's exactly where you want it as a magnet to encourage oxalate excretion.
And especially in the calcium citrate form, right? Because citrate also is good.
Yeah, that's ideal, but it's not required to use that form. Some people don't get along with that as well as others. So you can try pyruvate and or carbonate or even crushed eggshells. The calcium is the important part, but the citrate is fantastic because it's so alkalizing. It's so ionizable. It's useful to the body. It helps protect you from kidney stones. It helps you rebuild your teeth and bones because citrate is what helps minerals stick into your teeth and bones. It's actually very productive to use the citrate form.
And vitamin B6 plays a role.
Osteoporosis, and you are going to need to rebuild your teeth and bones, unfortunately, if you've been eating these foods.
So you say it's a culprit also in promoting osteoporosis.
I have no doubt about it. I had unexplained osteopenia, which reversed itself in a few years on this diet.
That's really phenomenal. I think that's a very, very important insight. What about vitamin B6? That seems to play a role in kidney stone prevention. Does it play a role in people with oxalate overload?
B6 and B1 are important cofactors to these enzymes in the liver that can end up producing oxalate in the body. So they're very important to keep the liver functioning well, to minimize the endogenous production in the body. I'm a little concerned about the standard B6 pyridoxine HCl that's in most of the supplements, and I discourage use of that.
You like P5P better?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but B1 is really powerful because that is a cofactor along with magnesium and other minerals to shunt the precursor to oxalate to non-toxic end products. So you really need that B1, which is probably even more important than B6.
And tell us a little bit finally about bone broth, because you're a big fan of bone broth. Is it for the collagen that you recommend that? And you don't even necessarily suggest that people get the powdered forms that people get in the health food store. You suggest that people just make it up?
The best part about bone broth is it's a culinary convenience food. Once you learn to make it and have it in your fridge, it makes home cooking easier and makes your food flavorful and turns you into a chef. You can overdo bone broth and connective tissue because the hydroxyproline, which is one of these connective tissue amino acids that's in gelatin and collagen, also is converted into oxalate in the liver to a small degree. And if you overdo bone broth, collagen supplements, gelatin supplements, you can also increase your endogenous production.
Wow.
Although the biggest precursor to endogenous production in the liver is vitamin C. That's the main one.
Well, so in other words, and people are a la Linus Pauling, they're like loading with vitamin C, especially with COVID, and with allergies and environmental pollution. Vitamin C is an important part of everybody's regimen, but people who have oxalate issues, the synthetic pathways from vitamin C go readily to oxalate, right?
See, it can degenerate into oxalate even without pathways, even without the enzymes. And there are enzymatic pathways, and it does turn into oxalate. But that's the main way even plants make oxalic acid is first they make vitamin C, and then they turn it into oxalate. That's how easy it is to oxidize the vitamin C into oxalic acid. And the interesting thing is that we're ignoring our own research that suggests that immune cells can only absorb so much vitamin C. Once you're up to like 400 milligrams, you've pretty much saturated it. Unless you're in chronic infection or dying of sepsis, then you have that many more white blood cells to feed vitamin C to. But all of the extra is just extra that gets hung up in cells and turns to oxalate within cells and then starts destroying the cell's capacity to manage its calcium and will increase calcium dysregulation in cells and increase the oxalate poisoning in situ, like right up there in your brain cells.
So with decreased intake of many plant-based sources of vitamin C, do you think it's reasonable for people to take moderate amounts of vitamin C supplementation, perhaps in divided doses, to not exceed the capacity of the body to process it and absorb it? Maybe, 200, 250 or something, 2 or 3 times a day. Is that unreasonable?
What I recommend often to my clients is to try to get 50 milligrams 3 times a day, and to juice lemons, because lemons are your best source of citric acid, which protects you from kidney stones, and you're going to get 30 milligrams from a lemon. If you eat fresh or red peppers and lettuce, you're getting vitamin C there. You can get a fair amount of C from your diet, and you really, once you're over 250 milligrams a day, you're at risk of producing oxalate. So you only need so much, and you need vitamin C. It's so important to have vitamin C, but more in this case is not better.
Wow, this is really an exciting new paradigm, and it's kind of a counterfactual paradigm. Not that it's not fact-based, but it kind of goes against the grain of a lot of assumptions, which is that we want a plant-based diet, we want to eat a lot of whole grains, we want to eat a lot of nuts. Chocolate is really good for you. Take lots of vitamin C. And on it goes. But I think really it's high time that we introduce this perspective. It may not be, one size fits all, but I think for challenging medical conditions, I think it's important to open the lens to this possibility. And I think your book is going to be a very, very important guide to both patients and clinicians to be aware of this and, to not discount the potential for oxalate toxicity to be at least a driver of many enigmatic symptoms that, are otherwise hard to treat. So congratulations to you.
So beautifully said. It is a fantastic clinical tool. And the sad part is that sick people reach for these high oxalate foods, and it usually makes them worse, and they can't figure out why. They try so hard to eat all the right things, and it doesn't work.
Right. It's kind of like a reverse merit system. Is the more meritorious you are, the worse you feel, right? Yeah.
It's so unfair. It just violates my sense of fairness to see us, those of us who are trying hard as health geeks and failing because we're getting the wrong information. Okay,
well, thanks very much for getting the word out, and you're a wonderful communicator. The book, once again, is Toxic Superfoods: How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better, released in January 2023, and available usual sources and SallyKNorton.com website, where there's lots of resources, useful information. And finally, do you counsel clients, because there may be some complex cases, people who've been to doctors may not be that well acquainted with this paradigm. Do you work virtually? Because sounds like you're located on the West Coast. That's my impression.
I'm on the East Coast.
Oh, you are? Okay.
East Coast all the way. My family's been on the East Coast since 1635.
Oh, okay.
And I do see people through Zoom meetings all over the world. I have clients all over the world. I have not enough hours in the day, but I also do group Zoom meetings where you can meet other people and get a lesson from me, complete with PowerPoint slides. And eventually I'll have a video course so that more people can take advantage of learning this.
That's great, because you can really extend your outreach and personalize your treatment, because it sounds like it's not easy. I mean, it's not a quick fix. It's a bit of a journey for people suffering from these types of problems. And I think it needs an experienced hand to guide them through the ins and outs of this process. So glad you're there for this.
So true.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. This has been a very interesting discussion. That's Sally Norton. And I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman. This is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the Intelligent Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app, and get new episodes automatically downloaded every weekday. And please give us a rating and review. It truly helps new people discover intelligent medicine. The Intelligent Medicine Podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Finally, please visit drhoffman.com and discover everything Intelligent Medicine has to offer, including frequently updated, unbiased health news and fully vetted product and supplement recommendations. There were many important reasons why I started my FullScript online supplement dispensary. I wanted to offer you the same curated professional-grade supplement brands that I use, the ones I know and trust. I also wanted to ensure that they weren't counterfeit or expired. Recently, I've been hearing more and more about counterfeit or expired products purchased from online retailers. With FullScript, you can be confident your supplements are genuine and they'll arrive with optimal freshness and potency. Also, buying through FullScript offers fast, free shipping, optional refill reminders, and a highly rated mobile app. It's safe, secure, HIPAA compliant, and offers world-class support. Go to drhoffmanstore.com for more information and to start your free FullScript account. You'll get access to the supplements and features you need to help you achieve your wellness goals, including my custom targeted protocols that combine the products I recommend to address specific needs, heart health, immune support, and much more. To get started, just go to drhoffmanstore.com, drhoffmanstore.com.